and welcome back to another episode of Florida Foodie. I'm Lisa Bell, your host, along with our producer, Thomas Mates. Well, we all know the coronavirus pandemic has forced millions of people out of work, increasing the need for food assistance all across the country and, of course, right here in Central Florida. The need is pushing many food banks to their limits. So to talk more about the issues that food banks are facing during this emergency and how they are helping people make ends meet, we are joined today by Dave Krepcho, the president and CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Well, we know that you guys have been so busy right now. So many people saying they could have never predicted something this massive. What has your experience been since the beginning of this pandemic until now?
Yeah, since mid-March, it's been just beyond our wildest imagination. I've been involved in relief efforts from 9/11 to the great, the recession, to hurricanes, floods, fires, you name it. None of those compared to this in terms of the amount of demand and kind of the immediacy that it just happened. So since mid-March, to give you an idea of how big of a scale, we have been distributing enough food for 300,000 meals each day. And that is not enough. So we have never seen anything like that. Just incredible number of people out there that need help.
What was it prior to the pandemic, just to give us some sort of context?
We just about doubled. Prior at about 150,000 meals a day is really high because there is a problem of food insecurity in Central Florida. The pandemic just kind of ripped the scab off of that and, just virtually pretty much doubled the demand.
Sorry, I was going to say, does double the amount of people coming to your doorstep looking for food. How do you respond to that? How do you begin to respond to that?
Yeah, you think real fast on your feet. What we've done is just gotten very creative and very innovative on how to get the food to those folks. Not everybody can possibly come to our facility to get food. So we're doing it through literally about 550 different feeding programs in the 6-county area. But we're doing a lot of what we call mobile pantries, where we'll take a tractor trailer load of food out to a food desert, to a community in a highly coordinated way and distribute the food out there. So that kind of response, people do not have to wait 3 or 4 hours in line in the hot sun or the rain or whatever. So it really helps from that regard. Some other innovative things we're doing is, and this is something I never thought I'd see us ever do as a food bank. We are doing home delivery of food. It was needed prior to the pandemic, but we could not quite crack that nut and figure it out. But it's something about a disaster. It can force you to look at doing things differently. It's forcing all of us, right? So we're doing home delivery, and Amazon really stepped up to work with us on that. So people would call into Second Harvest, hey, I have COVID, I'm self-quarantined, I live alone, I can't get out, I need food. Or there's senior citizens that are, physically disabled and can't get out of their homes, or single moms and maybe one of their kids have COVID or whatever. So that has really taken off wonderfully, where they call in, we get their addresses, we vet them to see, you got to have a legitimate request for this. And then Amazon picks up the food at our facility and delivers it to their doorstep. There's a knock on the door, so they know, they're there, and they leave the food box there, so you can respect the social distancing piece of it. When we started this, it was in late March, and it was like trying to change your flat tire in your car when you're going 70 miles an hour, right? You just had to create it on the fly. And it has grown wonderfully to this week alone. We will do 750 deliveries.
Wow.
And we believe we're going to get up to a couple thousand. So we've had to become very, very innovative and creative in getting that food out to so many more people.
So what was the speed at which this happened? Did this kind of ramp up over the month of March as more and more cases came, or was it just sort of like overnight, once the shutdown began, boom, you saw all these new faces?
It seemed to happen mid-March very quickly. I would have thought we would have saw more of a gradual upswing, but that mid-March time is when Orange County and the city of Orlando, and the state really started shutting down. So when the theme park shut down, that's what made it very, very immediate because of all the people that work there and then all the restaurants that, feed the tourists and all the hotel rooms. So when you have an economy that concentrated on hospitality and it shuts down one day or during the week, all those entities, it's like a tidal wave coming in. And what that did was expose how fragile so many people in our community are, okay, that were prior to the pandemic, just on that bubble of maybe making things work and trying to put gas in the car and pay the rent and utilities and buy food and medicine. And soon as that income is impacted, wow, there's not savings there to, in all cases, to take care of things. A lot of people calling in, I'd say, 40 to 50% of the additional demand for sure is COVID related, or 100% of the additional demand is that a lot of folks said, man, I've never been in this place before. I've never asked, and I'm a bit embarrassed, those kinds of things. If I could just read a very short food request, okay? I want to read it to do it justice, okay? So, I talked about those mobile pantries going out in the community. So here's somebody that emailed in, when is the next mobile pantry and where's it going to be? Me and my husband are homeless and he has type 2 diabetes along with other medical problems. We've been living in our car since October. No shelters will take us both because he can't be by himself. He cannot walk or stand for a long period of time. If you can help us or lead us in a direction of someone who can, we will be very interested, but we really need that information about the food truck drop-off. Thank you. I mean, we're getting tens and thousands of those requests. We have a food finder button on our website on the homepage. And when people click on it, it gives them a map of Central Florida and where all our feeding programs are, right? So they can access them. Pre-pandemic, we were getting 63 requests a day, which is a lot. Mm-hmm. Mid-March, we started getting on average 1,200 a day.
Wow.
So to date, well over 100,000 requests off that, plus thousands and thousands of phone calls as well. So I've never, ever seen anything like it.
So in order to meet the demand, what exactly are you doing? You mentioned restaurants. Were any of them able to donate some of their food when they all had to shut down? And of course, we saw all those images of vegetables rotting in farms and,
yes.
Dairy farms, not knowing what to do with their milk or their livestock.
Exactly.
Have you guys been able to take any of that food and help distribute that?
Yeah. The food story, and again, this is unique to this disaster, right? The food supply chain has been upside down, so to speak. So what happened is the grocery stores, there was so much demand on them that we had been relying on them for about 30% of our annual distribution pre-pandemic. All of a sudden, those donations disappeared. So it was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We have 100% demand and we got 30% less food. So you mentioned those restaurants or the theme parks like Disney. They had all their stocks in their refrigerators and their distribution centers. So they sent us multiple truckloads of fantastic food at the beginning of this that really made a difference. And that food did not spoil as a result and got out to people in need. The food grocery retailers, that food is slowly coming back. but the retailers were swamped not only because of hoarding of some items, right? But people started eating at home as a family multiple days of the week. I think it was quadruple or quintuple times amount. So that means the added demand from grocery stores. And that's why we saw, bare shelves and that kind of thing. Some food manufacturers and distributors and wholesalers have come to our rescue. And then the Florida farmers, you mentioned all that excess produce. And their biggest customers are the food service industry, the theme parks, the hotels, that kind of thing. So when their customers go away, wow, where are they going to put that product, right? They can't flip a switch and turn the machine off. The crop continues to grow. So we've been able to work directly with the Florida farmers and rescue millions of pounds of that food product. And that's the most nutritious food product we can distribute. And it can be the most expensive kind of food for people to buy as well. So we've been able to do that. And then a couple other sources with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, allocated funding through the CARES Act for a lot more USDA commodities to be provided. And that has really helped us substantially. So thank goodness we've been able to secure a lot of food. There's still a couple categories that we have work to do on, though.
And so let's talk about, you mentioned Amazon and the delivery, which is great for you guys. Now, are they actually paying for all that, or do you also need financial contributions to help facilitate some of that?
Thanks for asking that. We're using donated foods, okay? And Amazon was paying to deliver that. So unfortunately, they are exiting from the scene, this month, but we thank them for the phenomenal support during the launch days and getting this going and helping us that way was phenomenal, their expertise. But now we have transitioned into Plan B, okay? So we are using donated food still, but we have a lot of fundraising to do to support that program now, to pay some drivers and delivery costs, those kinds of things. So yeah, it's shifted there. But this is a service that we see living on beyond the pandemic.
And it's so complex. I mean, you mentioned that letter that you wrote from that lady who was looking for some food assistance and living in her car. So you obviously need to provide her with food that she will actually be able to use. Obviously, a bunch of refrigerated items are not going to serve her well. So how do you make sure that some of your clients are actually getting the stuff that they need and they can actually use?
Right. And that's through, if it's a direct request to us, we can have that conversation about their living situation, and it even gets down to requests that, you have a lot of food allergies out there and some, really serious ones, some that can be bordering on being deadly. So there's a real important conversation that takes place with one of our team members with those individuals on food allergies. Where are you located? Do you have a stove? Or are you in one of these small motel rooms, without an oven? So we're able to accommodate that box of food to the best of our ability to meet their needs.
So obviously right now, Florida is dealing with some spiking coronavirus case numbers. Each day we seem to set a new record in terms of the number of new positive cases. There could potentially be a second wave. Potentially this could be the second wave. How are you guys planning and preparing for that?
Boy, with a hope and a prayer, it's pretty scary to think about a second wave coming through. The approach that we've taken, that this is not a sprint, this relief effort. This is a marathon. And we've done projections out a year from now in terms of food supply, potential demand, the unemployment factors, and trying to look at all those models that are out there and to plan our distribution to try to pace it as much as possible, right? so we don't end up with an empty distribution center. So we've had to lease an additional warehouse to keep some non-perishables in for those super emergency times. And that includes, this busy hurricane season that we're going into.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I shouldn't have said the H word, cursed ourselves, but it's supposed to be active. So we're already pre-staging certain specific products and saying, listen, we got to keep some of these aside, and if hurricane season goes by and it's a gentle one, great. We have this product and we'll get it out to the community. But we see, hurricane aside, we see this extremely high demand continuing through November, into December, and hopefully in 2021 it'll start to taper off a bit. But we think a year out from now, June 2021, that we will still be at somewhat of an elevated level of need. During the pandemic, it really uncovered some specific things that the community, a lot of people in the community were suffering from before. And that was the lack of affordable housing, combined with low wages. That's a double whammy. And those problems didn't go away during COVID. They will be back, unfortunately. And I think we may see more people in that situation. I think, some employers, businesses are not coming back permanently, and some that are coming back are coming back not with the full cadre of staff they had before.
This situation that you described, though, is no surprise to anyone who has ever studied Central Florida and the economy here. Is it at all getting better? I mean, have steps been taken to reverse that trend? We are such a dependent economy on tourism. Is there anything that's kind of being done to reduce the high cost of housing, to boost wages? Do you see any improvement in that at all?
Well, there's little bits and pieces going on. I think incredible news when Disney announced $15 minimum wage, and then Universal Orlando went to that route. Those are good starts. It's not going to solve the affordable housing situation, though. And on that front, and trying to minimize homelessness here as well, there's an ongoing attempts to address those problems. The number of affordable housing units that are needed in Central Florida, the last I heard a few months ago, was something like 78,000 units.
Wow.
Now, Habitat does great work, but they're building 4 or 5 homes, maybe a dozen homes at a time, thank God. And then there are other groups that are looking to build multifamily, affordable homes or affordable apartments. And some of that's great activity, but the pace of that, is not nearly fast enough. So we really have to look at how do you scale that up? And that gets into a very long, complicated conversation about public policy at the federal level, state level, local level, and where are the funds being allocated to meet those needs. The other thing that I think is connected to all these issues, and I think this is a really critical lesson to be learned, and we were looking at this as an organization before the pandemic, and this pandemic put an exclamation mark on it. We as a community, the private companies, public companies, government, nonprofit, faith-based, we have to figure out a way to work together. We're working with this population that needs help in a variety of ways, from education, housing, jobs or income, and health, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to find a way to work more holistically around these people, because they don't have one issue. They're just not hungry. That's a symptom of not being able to pay the rent or the mortgage, they have diabetes or hypertension, that's not alone, they have a poor diet that might be, causing that. So we as a community really have to figure out, and, that's one of the silver linings, if you can call it, to something like this pandemic, that we're working with additional partners now during this so-called storm and forming those relationships. And there's nothing like a disaster to bond people, and find out, who's the like-minded soul or like-minded organization to continue this work. And we're doing that kind of thing. John Rivers of Four Rivers is just a great example. We just met yesterday again to work out how, what can we collaborate on? And there's opportunities to do it.
Well, that is great to hear. And I know he is full of great ideas, including launching all sorts of greenhouses in public schools that could assist with some of the food insecurity issues in our community. So yeah, that is exciting. Well, we appreciate you spending some time with us. And we know that it's crazy times right now and you are very busy, but we are glad to hear that you are seeming to get the donations that you need right now. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to meet the demands that you're facing.
Okay. Thank you so much for getting the word out. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Real quick before we go, where can people go to make a donation or try to volunteer? What's the website? What's the portal?
Yeah. Our website is www.feedhopenow.org, or you just Google Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida, and you can check in to volunteer. We got volunteers who are respecting social distancing. It's a safe environment. And then the website also can show you how you can donate financially. And, that's one concern that we have going. The Central Florida community is a very generous community and has been during this pandemic. But as I said, this is a marathon, and we're going to need some continued support, to keep providing food like this. But they can, visit the website. It's chock full of good information.
All right. Dave Krepcho, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Florida Foodie. We'd also like to thank our guest, Dave Krepcho from Second Harvest Food Bank. You can learn more about Second Harvest efforts online at feedhopenow.org. There you can also donate and find ways to volunteer. Be sure to follow Lisa Bell online as well. Search Lisa Bell News on Facebook and Instagram, or Lisa Bell News 6 on Twitter. You can also find her new children's books online at normangnomebooks.com and by searching Norman Gnome Books on Facebook and Instagram. Also, a big thank you to our technical producers, Derek Mosier and Ryan Haley. I'm the show's producer, Thomas Mates. Florida Foodie is available to download wherever you get your podcasts. Please take the time to rate and review us there as well. And you can find videos of all of our podcasts at clickorlando.com/podcast.